for watching Numbskull News. And today, we're going to talk about the ACC. Apparently, they're in financial decline. Now, this is coming from, not from me. Not from me. This is coming from the University of North Carolina by way of report from The Athletic. Apparently, they got a lot of leaked crap, leaked emails, conversations, all this stuff. People in UNC, in the hierarchy within UNC. I'm not going to go into all the names and all that. Y'all can read this article for yourself if you want to grab it. I'm tired of reading freaking articles. But the sound of everything, they're freaking out. Why? They see the ACC as a conference in financial decline. And they also see Jim Phillips as not exactly a friendly guy to them. More as an adversary. So what should this tell everybody? This is supposed to be, UNC is supposed to be like the flagship, right? It's supposed to be the tit pole of the ACC. And, they're not happy there. Now, things are different. Things are obviously a lot different in the state of North Carolina because the university itself does not control its own fate. That's the Board of Governors. They took care of that last year when they went and absorbed a bunch of power for themselves as far as realignment goes. And that was kind of done on purpose. Quite possibly the Board of Governors knew that North Carolina was sniffing around. Apparently since 2022, they've been sniffing around, weighing options. Now, me personally, I don't feel that North Carolina or the University of North Carolina is going to find its way into the SEC or Big Ten. I'm a contrarian. I have a lot of reasons, and I've made a shit ton of videos about why I feel the University of North Carolina will not end up in one of the Big Two conferences. It has a lot to do with their football. And Bill Belichick coming in, that's not going to change anything. Now, their ratings are going to go way up. I would be shocked next year if they're under 3 million viewers. And the main reason why is they're not going to get ostracized, like 4, 5, 6 of their games being ostracized to the ACC network. They're going to be playing on ABC, on Big ESPN, and they're going to have games that would normally go to the ACC network probably go to ESPN2. So they're going to get a lot more exposure with Bill Belichick, especially in his first year. Now, I, like a lot of you guys, I watch a lot of different shows. And there's a ton of college football shows on YouTube. And, I ran through and found some new guys. I'm not going to call them out. I'm going to be generous for once. I'm not going to call these people out. But, they were saying, well, they're only going to have Bill Belichick for 4 or 5 years. The SEC's got to move now. ESPN's got to move now. No, they're not. I mean, that's why ESPN picked up the ACC contract. One of the reasons, because now they'll get to have Mr. Bill Belichick. They don't need him in the SEC to get an advantage or get a bump, at least from one team in the ACC, out of a conference that normally doesn't get great ratings, out of a team that normally doesn't get the greatest of ratings. I'm not saying they're bad. If you gave UNC exposure, let's just say UNC was in the Big 12. That would be a school that it may not every year get 1 million viewers per week on average, but some years it would. And the years it didn't, you're talking maybe 750,000 on average to around 900,000 on average. That's kind of that would be the mark. And it wouldn't be tossed aside to an ACC network. They may play a game or two on ESPN Plus, on Big 12 Now, but if you see what ESPN did, they sold content to TBS and TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery, for the Big 12, which immensely helps us. But I'm digressing a little bit. But I do want to I did bring that up because what this tells me is UNC knows it needs to get to higher ground, more stable ground than the ACC is providing. This is why Clemson and Florida State are suing the ACC to get out. If everything was hunky-dory financially, I actually have idiots, literal morons, comment on my stuff pretty routinely. And there's only about a couple, and they swear up and down. The ACC makes a ton of money. They make all this money. Look, right? They're trying to convince me that the ACC right now is pretty close to the SEC and Big Ten. If that was the case, there would be no lawsuits. UNC wouldn't have spent whatever it's $500,000, $600,000 on legal fees just looking at shit. That's just exploratory stuff. And I'm willing to bet there's a private school. There's a private school in the southern part of the ACC that has probably spent a little coin doing the same thing. And there's been some subtle reporting of third-party talks between Louisville and the Big 12. Because Louisville, unlike a lot of other people, they're under no illusions or delusions of going to one of the Big Two conferences. They know it's the Big 12. When the shit hits the fan, and trust me, the shit is in the air, and the fan's over there. Eventually, shit will hit the fan. All right, that distance, and then the subsequent scatter is going to happen. And Louisville wants to make sure that they have a nice soft landing spot. And that's what the Big 12 is eventually going to be for several schools out of the ACC. And look, I don't hate the ACC. This is why I've been talking merger. I've been talking, a real partnership. If not a merger, then some kind of real legit partnership more than scheduling. And the reason is because it strengthens both conferences. And by the way, I'm not saying the Big 12 should merge with the ACC with Florida State, with Clemson, or with anyone else who could possibly get to one of the Big Two. I'm saying let whoever can go, then merge. Does that sound like I'm full of hate for the ACC? It doesn't to me. It doesn't to me. Because, it can go one or two ways. When your big schools leave, and it looks like UNC wants to be right in there. And another certain private school in the south end of the conference may very well have an option as well. And if all that comes to pass and those four schools are gone, and I could very well be wrong about UNC, and if I am and they end up in the SEC or somewhere, where does that leave everybody else? What do you think that conference is worth in 2036? After the Big 12 have renegotiated. And you don't think schools that are sitting there are going to want to stick around? No, they want to get to higher ground as fast as humanly possible. And if it's the Big 12, so be it. It'll be the Big 12, and that's where they'll go. If you don't believe me, ask Arizona State. Ask Utah. This is what they had. They didn't want to leave the Pac-12. The Pac-12, all its academics and all of its luster didn't mean jack shit in the end. Didn't mean anything. It's all about the business. And it became about stability, especially for those schools. No one wants to be out there pissing in the wind like Oregon State and Washington State. That's all I'm saying. But that entire article should just help illustrate everybody that the one school Because this is a refrain I keep hearing. Well, Florida State and Clemson leave. It's fine. We still got UNC. Well, do you? Do you? It's not sounding like they want to be here anymore. Remember, they voted with Florida and they voted with Clemson. They did not want Stanford, Cal, and SMU to join the ACC. They didn't want that. If you think that they have forgotten that shit, you're living in some delusional alternate timeline. Because these people remember. They remember how the conference turned on them. So I think they're feeling like they don't have the stroke. They don't have the influence they once did. And if they're not going to have the influence, then at least write them a big check. And if you're not going to write them a big check, they're not going to be in this bitch when it's all said and done. They're going to walk. Now, does that mean they're going to get out tomorrow? No. Obviously, no one's getting out tomorrow. No one's getting out this year or next year or the year after that. You got your little stay of execution. It's going to be interesting, though. Florida State and Clemson. Can there be a settlement? This is what everyone's talking about. I'm not saying there's not going to be. But they need unequal revenue share to keep them happy. UNC is going to want a cut of that. Miami's going to want a cut of that. So someone's got to pay the piper. That's going to be the lower schools. Not everyone's going to make what those 4 schools make. Louisville's not going to make what they make. Pitt's not going to make that. Georgia Tech, I know what you're saying. Well, hold on. Part of this is about winning. Okay. Part of it's about winning. A part of it is about brand. A part of it is about viewership. Now, that would have helped Georgia Tech out this year. Not really the winning aspect of it, but the viewership. The brand, that doesn't help them. They're going to tailor it to a certain amount of schools. And everybody knows it. But this is going to make for some interesting drama moving forward. I can't wait, because a vote's going to have to take place as far as unequal revenue sharing. Boy, I can't wait to see how that plays out. I'm not saying it won't pass. It's going to be interesting to see who votes yay and who votes nay. That'll be very interesting. Some of you ACC fans, y'all don't get it. When you start introducing things like this, unequal revenue sharing, when there's lawsuits, none of this shit is good for the health of a conference. None of it. I mean, you're going to have political divides. Contentment is going to run rampant if it's not already. There is a ton of horse shit in the ACC. And there's no way to circle the wagons and get everybody on board and sing Kumbaya. It's one of the problems in the Pac-12. Once USC left, once UCLA left, there was no bringing Oregon and Washington on board to be loyal to the conference. That was never going to happen. Once Florida State and Clemson leave, and they will leave, there is no scenario where they stay or re-up at 2036 with this conference. They're not going to do that. Or leave with a few other teams and construct a new conference. They're not going to do that shit either. They're going to get into one of the big 2, and they're going to be gone. Why? Because that's where the prestige is now. It's not with the ACC anymore. You don't have that value anymore. And as soon as these teams saw Texas and Oklahoma split, USC split, they said, yo, we got to do the same thing. We want to get paid like our peers. We need to be in a conference with our peers. Because the ACC just ain't it. And it is never going to be it. There's too many low brands at the bottom that are pulling us down. That's what Texas and OU thought. That's what USC and UCLA thought. And ultimately, that's what Oregon and Washington thought as well. We don't want to be stuck in this shit. We got to get over here. Does that mean Oregon State and Washington State had no value? Of course they have value. All right. Unfortunately, for them, they're up in no man's land. And it's beautiful there. Took a trip to Oregon just last summer. Beautiful. But it's way the hell up in the Northwest. Nobody wants to travel there for a game. It just sucks. It's a wonderful place to go and have a vacation. But to actually make that a part of your business model, it's one thing if it's the University of Oregon. It's another thing if it's the University of Washington. You can make an exception for those two. Everybody else can suck a flaming pecker. It's not going to happen. And look, Boston College has got value. Everyone mocks them. Wake Forest, everyone just takes a dump all over them. They got value. That's why I've been advocating for merger, because content is going to be huge in the future. Especially when these streamers start getting in. So if you got a shit ton of Division 1, Power 4 content at your disposal at the time with two merged conferences, it'd be Power 3. But a gigantic autonomous conference with a shit ton of content can sell a shit ton of content and make a shit ton of money. Doesn't matter. Not every brand has to be Texas or Florida State. Not every brand is. Well, it's just one big G5. Well, you're an idiot if you think that. We're worth a hell of a lot more than that. Anyway, we're all going to have to be patient. God knows how long all of this crap is going to take to unravel and figure out how it's going to go. But in the meantime, I'm going to be speculating and I'm going to be talking shit, because that's what I do. And hopefully you'll join me for some of it. Anyway, thanks for watching this crap, and I'll be back with some more crap later. Bye.